Baby cries. Every night at 3:33 a.m. Monitor records a voice, whispering her name. It started on a Tuesday night, when the silence in the house wasn't silent anymore. Kara had just returned from maternity leave and was easing back into the rhythm of sleepless nights and early mornings. Her daughter, Ivy, was only 4 months old, and like clockwork, she cried out every night. But lately, something had changed. The cries came at exactly 3:33 a.m. Not a minute before, not a minute after. Kara noticed the pattern because the baby monitor app saved timestamps. At first, she chalked it up to coincidence. Babies wake often. Hunger, teething, discomfort. But there was something about the way Ivy cried during those moments. It wasn't frantic or distressed. It was soft, almost expectant, like she was reacting to something, or someone, that Kara couldn't see. Her husband, Jordan, a rational, numbers-driven engineer, dismissed her growing concern with practicalities. "You're overtired," he'd say, peering at the monitor logs. "You're making patterns out of normal infant behavior." But Kara knew Ivy's cues. She knew her cries, and this was different. On the fourth night, Kara stayed awake on purpose. She sat in the rocking chair outside Ivy's room with a baby monitor in one hand and her phone in the other. The house was still. Shadows from the hallway nightlight danced along the edges of the doorframe. Her heart thudded in time with the quiet ticking of the clock. 3:32 a.m. She held her breath. 3:33. Ivy stirred. Then she whimpered. Then she cooed. Kara's eyebrows furrowed. Cooing? She pressed the volume up on the monitor. Static crackled. Then a faint voice. "Ivy!" Kara's blood froze. She sat bolt upright, staring at the screen. Ivy's tiny figure squirmed in her crib, smiling, smiling. Her little arms reached upward as if waiting to be picked up. "Ivy," the voice whispered again, gentle, almost loving. Kara burst into the room. Nothing. No one. Ivy looked up at her mother and blinked, then started to cry, louder this time, confused. Kara checked the monitor app. The audio had been recorded. She played it back over and over. The voice was male. Software too clear to be an interference. Not Jordan, not a neighbor, not a TV, and it knew her daughter's name. That night, Kara didn't sleep. She sat in the kitchen staring at the baby monitor in her hands. The screen dimmed, the voice echoing in her mind. She played it again, again, again. At 6 a.m., she sent the clip to Jordan and typed, "This happened at 3:33 again. Tell me you hear it." No response. Later that morning, when he finally emerged from the bedroom groggy-eyed and irritated, he said he never got the message. But when she opened the app to show him the clip again, it was gone. Deleted. The app log still had the timestamp, but the file was no longer playable, like it had been scrubbed. Kara reinstalled the app, updated the firmware. Nothing. That was the first moment Kara truly felt afraid. Not because of the voice itself, but because something didn't want her to hear it again. That night, she placed a second recording device in the nursery, one that wasn't connected to Wi-Fi. 3:33 a.m. came. Ivy cried. The voice didn't return. Just soft whimpers from her baby and the quiet rustle of the crib sheet. But when she checked the second recorder the next morning, what she found was even worse. Static. Garbled tones. A sudden, sharp whisper right in the middle. "She's listening." Kara stared at the waveform on her screen, the message embedding itself in her spine like ice. Who was listening? And then she saw something that made her drop the phone. A shadow, faint but visible, crossing the nursery floor at 3:32:57. She replayed it again, this time slowing the footage down, frame by frame. It wasn't just a shadow, it was shaped like a person. A tall figure moving silently across the room from the corner near Ivy's crib to the far wall, where nothing should have cast a shadow. The hallway light had been off. The blinds were closed. No movement outside. There was no source for the shadow. And yet it had mass. It walked. Jordan insisted she was imagining it again, refusing to even look at the slowed-down footage. It's probably a glitch in the infrared. These monitors aren't built to be perfect. But Kara had seen it. She knew what she saw. And that night, Ivy cried again. 3:33 on the dot. Only this time, Kara didn't rush in. She watched from the hallway, her hand trembling over the doorknob, phone recording in her other hand. She zoomed in through the cracked door. There was Ivy, arms outstretched once more, smiling into the dark. And then? The closet door creaked open. It was just a hairline crack, no more than an inch, but it hadn't been opened before. Kara knew that door stuck unless you yanked it. She held her breath, frozen. Then, movement. A breeze? A shift? The air in the hallway grew colder, like a vacuum was forming around her. Kara stepped back, heart pounding in her chest like a drum. She burst into the room and scooped Ivy into her arms, backing out and slamming the closet door shut with her foot. Ivy clung to her, and for the first time, Kara felt the baby's body shake, not just from crying, but from fear. She called her sister the next day, someone she hadn't spoken to much since the baby was born. Emily had always been into what Kara once called weird stuff. Paranormal podcasts, ghost hunting YouTubers, even dabbled in energy healing. Desperate now, Kara told her everything. Emily didn't laugh. In fact, she got very quiet. 3:33 is the witching hour, Emily said. Some believe it's when the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest. If something is reaching out to Ivy, it's doing so because she's open, vulnerable. Babies are. They're still fresh from wherever we come from before this life. Kara wanted to argue, wanted to dismiss it as superstition. But her gut, tight and anxious for days now, told her otherwise. That night, she saged the room, prayed, did every protective ritual Emily sent her, even if she felt silly doing it. But Ivy still cried at 3:33. Only this time, when Kara rushed in, Ivy was no longer smiling. She was staring at the closet again, silent, tears running down her cheeks. Her lips trembled, but she made no sound. Kara followed her gaze. The closet door, open, wider this time. She stepped forward and yanked it shut, but as her hand met the handle it felt warm. Not just from heat, but like someone had just touched it from the other side. Her breath caught, and then her phone buzzed. A new alert from the baby monitor app. She opened it. A new clip. No video. Just audio. She pressed play. "Ivy," the same male voice whispered. "You're not alone. You'll never be alone." Followed by a second voice, a female one. This one was sharp, close, urgent. "Don't let her in." Kara dropped the phone. She stood there in the nursery, her heart racing so loud she could barely hear anything else. Ivy had stopped crying again, but the silence wasn't comforting. It was too silent, like the room was holding its breath. Even the usual hum of the baby monitor seemed to dim. Her phone buzzed once more. Another alert. This time, a live feed. She picked it up with shaking hands, and as she tapped to open the video, she saw something that made her legs weaken beneath her. The live footage showed Ivy's room, but Kara wasn't in it. She blinked, confused. She was holding her daughter right there, standing in the very center of the room. But the video feed showed the crib empty, the mobile gently swaying, and no one else in the room at all. Except for the closet door, wide open now. In the corner of the monitor screen, a figure stood just inside the shadows of the closet. Barely visible, still, a tall silhouette, unnaturally still, watching. Kara turned her head toward the closet. It was closed again. She checked the monitor. Still open. The figure still there. Reality and digital reality weren't matching anymore. The camera was showing a different version of the room, as if it was revealing something her eyes couldn't see. "I'm done," Kara whispered. She took Ivy downstairs, laid her in the bassinet, and called Jordan, begging him to come home early from his trip. She told him to watch the new footage himself. This time he didn't argue. He just said, "I'll catch the earliest flight." That night, Kara didn't sleep. She kept every light in the house on, her eyes flicking to the monitor every few seconds. She expected the same 3:33 incident, but when the time came, nothing happened. No cries, no voices, just static. At first, she thought maybe the rituals worked. Maybe whatever it was had moved on, until Ivy started laughing. From the living room, Kara turned toward the bassinet. Ivy was staring up at the ceiling, giggling. Kara followed her gaze, and her breath caught in her throat. There, faint but definite, was the shape of a handprint on the ceiling, a long, slender handprint that slowly faded before her eyes. Kara scooped Ivy up and ran out of the house. She didn't stop until she reached her car. She didn't even care that it was nearly 4 a.m. She drove straight to her mother's house, sobbing the whole way. Her mom listened quietly, holding Ivy, while Kara recounted everything, voice trembling. When she finished, her mother hesitated, then whispered something Kara had never expected. "When you were a baby, this happened to you too." Kara froze. "What?" "You cried every night at 3:30 for nearly a year. Nothing would soothe you. I never told you because, well, I thought it was just colic or teething. But one night I heard something, whispering, just like you said. Your name. I always thought it was a dream." Kara stared at her mother, trying to process it. "What did it say?" Her mother looked away. "It said, 'She's the one. We remember her.'" Kara clutched Ivy tighter, her thoughts racing. Why Ivy? Why me? What did it mean, we remember her? That night, she decided she had to learn more. She called Emily again. "I need help. I think this is bigger than just a haunting." Emily didn't hesitate. "Then we need to find someone who knows how to deal with this. Not a ghost hunter, not a priest. Someone who remembers, too." Kara didn't know what that meant, but she was ready to try anything. Because the next night, Ivy didn't cry. She screamed. Kara jolted upright in bed, the monitor exploding with a high-pitched wail that pierced through her bones. Ivy's screams weren't the usual tired fussing. They were guttural, terrified, like she had seen something no child should ever see. Kara was down the hallway in seconds. She flung the nursery door open. The room was ice cold. Every light she'd left on was now off. The nightlight, the mobile, dead. Her hands shook as she hit the wall switch. Nothing. She snatched Ivy from the crib, who was still wailing and reaching. Not for Kara, but past her, toward the corner of the room. "No, no, no, shh, baby, I got you, you're safe," Kara whispered, backing out of the room. As she turned, Ivy twisted in her arms and looked back. That's when Kara heard it again. A whisper. Not from the monitor this time. From the air, inside the room. Ivy. Not threatening, not loud. Just close. Kara ran. She didn't stop until she reached the living room and flipped on every lamp in sight. Ivy trembled against her chest, tiny fingers still clenching her mom's shirt like a lifeline. The house groaned. Again. Kara had started to notice this subtle, rhythmic creaking at night, as if the walls were breathing, as if the house itself had a pulse. She stared at the monitor in her hand. The feed was frozen, stuck on 3:33 a.m. The time hadn't changed in 5 minutes, or maybe it had. She couldn't tell. Her head felt full of static. That's when the phone buzzed again. Another notification. She clicked. The app glitched, then opened to a photo. Not video. A photo, and not from the current feed. It had been saved. Time-stamped for 3:33 a.m., exactly 1 minute ago. In it, Ivy was standing in her crib staring directly into the camera. Eyes wide, mouth open in a scream. Behind her, the closet door was ajar, and there was a hand, long, pale, thin, pressed against the doorframe, fingers curled around it like it was pushing it open. The photo disappeared. Gone. Just like that. Kara screamed. Ivy screamed. It felt like the entire house screamed. She grabbed her keys, diaper bag, threw Ivy in the car seat, and drove. No destination, just away. It was nearly 5 a.m. when she pulled into a random gas station, hands trembling too hard to hold her coffee. Ivy had finally fallen asleep in the back, her tiny chest rising and falling in rhythmic peace. That's when Kara called Emily again. And this time, she didn't ask for advice. She begged, "Please, I can't stay in that house. Something is wrong. Not just with the nursery. Not just with the camera. With me. I'm starting to feel like I'm losing time. Seeing things. Hearing whispers when no one's there. Ivy's terrified. And I think it knows me. It keeps whispering my name now, too." Emily didn't hesitate. "I'm coming to get you. Don't go back to the house. Don't even look at the monitor. I know someone. You won't believe him at first, but just listen. He doesn't go by his real name anymore. Everyone calls him the archivist." "The what?" "He studies patterns, unsolved hauntings, family bloodlines. He told me once, some hauntings don't stick to places. They stick to people." Kara stared into the dark horizon. "You think this is generational?" "I think it started long before Ivy. Maybe even before you." By 8 a.m., Emily arrived in a dusty old Jeep, and they drove an hour north into the woods, through a winding, narrow road that Kara had never seen on a map. There, in a crumbling stone cottage surrounded by trees so dense the sun barely touched the ground, lived the archivist. He was not what Kara expected. Young, maybe mid-30s, but his eyes were ancient, not in age, but in experience. He greeted her at the door with a simple question. "Does it call your daughter by her full name yet?" Kara's blood ran cold. "Not yet." "It will," he said. "That's when you know it's crossed over. Right now, it's tethered to memory. Echoes. But soon, it'll want more. It always does." Kara stepped inside. Books. Everywhere. Floor to ceiling. Handwritten journals, newspaper clippings, photographs with dates scribbled in red ink. The archivist sat her down, then opened a massive leather-bound book. Flipping through yellowed pages, he stopped at a name. Isabel Renfield. A sketch. A woman in an 1800s dress holding an infant. "Who is that?" He looked up slowly. "Your great-great-grandmother." Kara blinked. "What does she have to do with this?" The archivist slid the book toward her. Beneath the sketch was a note. "Child cries nightly at the same time. Always 3:33. Said the name in sleep. Mother claimed a shadow man told her it would return for her bloodline." Kara's hands shook as she read it. "You're not being haunted," the archivist said softly. "You're being remembered." The room felt colder after he said it. Kara blinked at the words in the journal, her eyes frozen on the sketch of her great-great-grandmother holding a faceless infant. The past didn't feel like the past anymore. It felt like it had a door, and something inside had learned how to knock. "Remembered by what?" she whispered. The archivist closed the book gently, as if afraid it would wake something up. "I've traced this phenomenon back 5 generations in your family. Each time the pattern repeats. An infant begins crying at 3:33 a.m. Then the whispers. Then the name. Then other things." Kara clutched Ivy tighter. She was still asleep in her arms, her tiny hand wrapped around her mother's necklace. "What other things?" The archivist stood and walked toward a shelf near the fireplace. He pulled down a dusty box, unlatched the metal clasp, and took out a reel of microfilm and a photograph, sepia-toned and faded. It was of a woman standing in front of a farmhouse, holding a baby. The woman looked almost exactly like Kara. Isabel Renfield, he said. According to historical birth records, she had 3 children. Only one survived past infancy. The other 2? Both cried every night at 3:33 a.m. Both were found unresponsive. No physical cause, just gone. Kara looked away. Why Ivy? Why now? The archivist's face darkened. Because the last bloodline vanished in the 1960s. Your family line skipped a generation. No children for years. But now, he looked at Ivy. It has something to come back to. Kara stood, her heart hammering. Okay, but we left the house. The crying only happened there. So we're safe, right? The archivist tilted his head. You still have the monitor? She nodded slowly. It's in my bag. Turned off. He didn't blink. It doesn't matter. Once it learns the sound of your child's voice, once it hears the mother's fear, the tether begins. You carried the gateway with you the moment you hit record. Kara's mind reeled. Then what do I do? Burn it? Delete the footage? The archivist shook his head. You can't erase something that's been waiting for more than a century. He stood again, crossing to another room filled with corkboards, pins, and red string connecting names, symbols, newspaper headlines. One board was labeled Third Hour Phenomena. Kara stared. Dozens of articles. Mother claims ghost visits. Daughter at 3:33 a.m. Camera captures unseen entity near infant crib. Mothers across generations report. Same nightly cry. It wasn't just her. There's a time between night and morning, the archivist said, running his finger along the board. A sliver of space where reality softens. That's when they speak. And always, it's the same time. 3:33 a.m. Halfway between dark and dawn. They wait there, where the veil is thinnest. He looked her dead in the eyes. Whatever is whispering your daughter's name isn't just remembering. It's practicing, trying to get the sound right, like an echo getting closer to the original voice. Kara sat down, her knees weak. This isn't just a haunting, it's a pattern, and it's alive. That night, at the archivist's insistence, they stayed in the cottage. No cameras, no electronics, nothing digital that could be used to listen, transmit, or record. The archivist explained that these entities don't feed on flesh. They feed on memory, attention. Technology gives them access, eyes, ears. That's why they always choose the monitor first, a modern-day looking glass. But at exactly 3:33 a.m., Ivy stirred. She didn't cry. She just sat up, eyes wide open, and whispered, "He's here!" Kara's blood froze. She turned on the lamp. Ivy was pointing, not at the door, not at the window, but straight up, at the ceiling. And for a split second, Kara heard it too. From above, not the floor creaking, not wind, but something dragging, like fingers sliding across wood. Slow, deliberate. The archivist burst into the room holding a thick bundle of sage and an ancient-looking tome. "She spoke, didn't she?" he said, voice shaking. Kara nodded. He stepped toward Ivy, who looked straight at him and said, "He knows you." That stopped him cold. "Who?" Kara demanded. "What does that mean?" But Ivy just laid back down, her eyes still wide open, and whispered one final word before falling asleep. "Oi, Isabel." The archivist dropped the book in his hand. Kara picked it up, flipped to the name, Isabel Renfield. Her date of death had always been listed as unknown, but scribbled in faded ink at the bottom of the page was one chilling line. She will return when she is named. And now her name had been spoken again, by Ivy. The silence that followed was unbearable. It stretched and folded in on itself, like sound itself had gone into hiding. The archivist stared at Ivy as though she'd just summoned a ghost from bone. Kara's voice trembled. "You said she died. She's been gone for generations." He shook his head. "Number, I said her death was unknown. She didn't pass on. She transcended." Kara narrowed her eyes. "What does that mean?" The archivist paced. "In every account, Isabel's presence is marked not by death, but by continuity. She moves through time like memory, a name, a whisper, a sound at the hour when the veil thins. The moment someone from her line speaks her name, she finds her way back. She's not a ghost? Number, she's more dangerous than a ghost. She's an echo with intention." Kara pulled Ivy into her arms. Her daughter's skin was cold, but she didn't seem frightened. Just aware. "Ivy," Kara said softly, "did someone tell you that name?" The girl nodded slowly, not blinking. "He did." Kara's heart dropped. "He who?" Ivy paused, eyes locked on the ceiling again. "The man who comes when it's quiet. He wears no face." The archivist backed away, nearly tripping over a stack of papers. "No face," he muttered. "It's always the same. The whisperer. He doesn't have a face because he wears theirs. He uses the voices of the children." Kara's mind reeled. "What does he want?" "To remember," the archivist said. "To become real. Each whisper, each name spoken, each moment of attention, it gives him shape. It starts as a noise, then a word, then a voice, and once he has that, he no longer needs the veil." Kara's mouth went dry. "He's trying to become human." The archivist nodded grimly. "And he always uses the last child, the blood echo. Your daughter is the echo, the final chord in a long-forgotten lullaby." Thunder cracked outside. The wind howled, but the room stayed still. Ivy closed her eyes. Then, from the corner of the room, the baby monitor turned itself on. The archivist lunged, yanking its batteries out, but the screen glowed anyway, static at first, then a whisper. "Ivy." Kara's blood turned to ice. That voice, it was hers, not just similar. It was her own voice whispering her child's name. Ivy smiled. "That's how he learns," the archivist said. "He doesn't steal voices. He copies them, plays them back until you can't tell the difference, until he sounds just like you." A chill slithered up Kara's spine. "If he's using my voice, what does he say next?" The monitor crackled. Then it spoke again, still using Kara's tone. "Come here, sweetheart. It's okay. Mommy's right here." Kara threw it across the room. It landed with a sickening thud but didn't break. The voice continued, calm, rhythmic, like a twisted lullaby. "That's the pattern," the archivist said, scrambling for salt, candles, whatever wards he could find. "It always ends in imitation. That's how he crosses over." "How do we stop it?" He didn't answer immediately. Then finally, "We have to finish the memory." "What does that mean?" "We don't run from it. We finish what Isabel started. The original lullaby, the one she used to sing, the one that held him back. There's only one record of it. One line survived across all generations." He opened an ancient notebook and read aloud. "Hush now, child. The stars are near. Don't listen close, or you will hear. The man who waits and wears no skin, who calls you soft to pull you in." Kara felt her chest tighten. "I've heard that," she whispered. "My mother sang it. Once. I thought she made it up." "She didn't," the archivist said. "She remembered. They had to end it. Tonight." The archivist explained the ritual. Kara must hold Ivy and sing the lullaby from start to finish, without stopping, no matter what she heard, no matter what voice answered back. Because the moment she paused, the whisperer would speak, and if he finished the song before she did, he would take Ivy forever. Kara agreed. They turned off every light. At 3:32 a.m., she sat in the center of a salt circle, Ivy on her lap, the monitor silent again. She began to sing, "Hush now, child. The stars are near. A gust of wind slammed against the walls. Don't listen close, or you will hear. The baby monitor clicked back on. Static. The man who waits and wears no skin. And then her own voice from the monitor answered, is standing right behind you again. Kara stopped. Just for a second. Just long enough to hear a floorboard creak behind her. Ivy opened her mouth, about to say something, and Kara snapped back into the lullaby, voice trembling but firm. Who calls you soft to pull you in? The room pulsed. Not shook. Pulsed, like it had a heartbeat of its own. The air grew thick. Too thick. Every breath Kara drew felt like she was inhaling water. She clutched Ivy tighter, refusing to look behind her. The floorboard behind her creaked again, but she sang on. Close your eyes and do not peek. The baby monitor answered, this time in a voice she didn't recognize. Male, dry, brittle, like wind through a dead forest. The man behind you doesn't sleep. Kara forced the next line through clenched teeth. Keep your hands and feet inside. The voice echoed back, or he'll take what's left and hide. And then Ivy, sweet, soft Ivy, joined in. The rest of you where I can't find. Kara froze. That wasn't a line from the lullaby. She turned Ivy's face toward her. Who taught you that? Ivy blinked slowly. He said I should finish it. He said if I do, he'll come out. He wants to meet you. The monitor flashed. Not static this time. A flickering image, too dark to make out clearly, but the shape of a room. A mirror, cracked. A figure standing too close to the camera, just close enough that you could see the blur where a face should be. Kara covered Ivy's ears. No more singing, no more listening. The archivist stepped forward, salt in one hand, a small bell in the other. If she finished the song in her voice, he said, you'd already have lost her. She didn't finish it, Kara said. I stopped her. No, the archivist corrected. He stopped her. That last line? That wasn't her voice, it was his. He handed Kara the bell. There's still time, but we need to bind the echo before the hour ends. Kara stared at the clock. 3:42 a.m., 11 minutes. Tell me what to do. The archivist placed 3 objects before her. A photograph of Ivy's first birthday, a small vial of Kara's blood, and the baby monitor. These are your anchors, he said. He exists in your story, not just the world. You must rewrite the ending. Memory, blood, and voice. We need all 3 to pull him back. Kara sat cross-legged, Ivy in her lap, objects around them like points of a triangle. Now, the archivist said, speak the lullaby again. But this time, rewrite it as you go. Force him into the story you want to remember. If you do it right, he won't be able to resist. He'll follow the path right into the circle. Kara nodded and began. Hush now, child. The stars still glow. The monitor whispered back. But not for you. You already know. She spoke louder. The man who waits will walk past you, if you remember what is true. The mirror in the monitor cracked. Kara's voice grew stronger. She reached into her memory, pulling words from her soul rather than fear. You are mine and not his song. You were never meant to belong. To shadows shaped by stolen breath, you will not walk into his death. The screen shattered inside the monitor. The salt around them lifted off the floor, levitating for just a moment, then dropped as a low, hideous shriek filled the room. A figure began to form in the smoke above the circle. Long limbs, no mouth, and yet a voice. Hundreds of voices rushed from it like wind through a cracked door. Kara stood, holding Ivy close. You do not belong to us. You are not remembered here. The figure writhed, struggling. Then Ivy looked up. Her voice, pure, clear, rang out. Go away now. We are awake. And just like that, the smoke collapsed. The figure dissolved like mist hit by sunlight. Silence returned. The monitor was dark. Ivy smiled. He's gone. The archivist exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. You did it. Kara fell to her knees, sobbing. Not from fear this time, but release. But as she cradled Ivy, the clock on the wall ticked to 3:45 a.m. And then the monitor flickered. Just once. The tiniest pulse. One final whisper. So faint you could almost convince yourself it wasn't there. Except it said, "See you next time, Mommy." Kara didn't breathe, didn't move, didn't even blink. The baby monitor was dark again, but the echo of that whisper seemed to hang in the room like smoke, curling through her ears, her chest, down her spine. She looked at Ivy, who was now quietly tracing her finger along the hem of Kara's sleeve. And for the first time that night, Kara realized something worse than fear. Doubt? What if she hadn't won? What if this was just a beginning? The archivist seemed to read her expression. They never leave willingly, he said, his voice quieter now. Not unless they find someone else to answer. I'm not giving him anyone else, Kara snapped. This ends here. He nodded slowly. Then we close it properly. Tonight. He took the photograph of Ivy's birthday, the one they'd used in the circle, and held it up to the dim light. Kara stepped closer and saw something she'd missed before. In the corner of the image, half hidden behind a tree in the background, there was a figure. Too tall, too still, faceless, that same blur from the baby monitor. Why didn't I see this before? She asked. Because it was never meant to be seen, the archivist replied. It's not just an image, it's an imprint. He's been present longer than you realized. Kara staggered back, overwhelmed. How do I protect Ivy from something I can't even see until it's too late? The archivist placed the photo back down and poured salt over it. You changed the origin of the story. Kara blinked. What do you mean? Every haunting has a seed, a moment where permission was granted, even if unknowingly. You must find that moment. Kara tried to think. She replayed the weeks before the first 3:33 a.m. cry. The baby monitor, the lullaby, the nursery, and then her face paled. Ivy's nursery, she whispered. I found that old music box in a thrift store. It played the lullaby. I thought it was sweet. Vintage. I didn't think. The archivist looked grave. That music box may have carried more than a tune. Kara bolted upstairs. Ivy asleep in her arms, she gently laid her in the bed and turned toward the shelf. The music box was still there, still silent, still dangerous. She reached for it, hands trembling, and as her fingers brushed its surface, it clicked open on its own. A faint melody began playing, but it wasn't the lullaby this time. It was screaming, warped into a tune. Soft, muffled screams tangled into melody like trapped souls trying to escape through song. Kara slammed the lid shut, but Ivy had already woken. I remember that song, she whispered, sitting up. It's where I met him. Kara turned to her, kneeling. You met him? Inside the music? Ivy nodded. He said he used to sing to his baby too, but his baby stopped listening. The archivist had followed Kara upstairs. He stood in the doorway, eyes wide. He's not a spirit, he said. He's a story, a broken lullaby that never ended. Passed down, altered, forgotten, until someone finished it. Kara stared at the box. So what do we do? The archivist reached into his coat and pulled out a bundle wrapped in cloth. We tell a new story, one he cannot enter. He unwrapped the cloth to reveal a blank book and a red pen. This, he said, is the book of remembering. Write Ivy's story. Replace his version with yours. Every detail, every memory. You rewrite her life, her birth, her lullabies, her dreams. If you do it with truth, he'll have no path left to walk. Kara took the book, her hands firm now, determined. She sat down beside Ivy, who leaned against her shoulder. And she began to write. Every word Kara inked into the pages felt like a battle. One against shadows, against silence, against the unknown presence that had slipped into their lives unnoticed. She started with Ivy's first laugh, the way her tiny fingers gripped Kara's thumb, the scent of lavender from her baby shampoo, the humming sound she made before sleep. She wrote about lullabies she had sung, not the haunted tune from the music box. She erased that song from Ivy's history, wrote over it with love and protection. Ivy rested quietly beside her as if she could feel the words wrapping around her like a blanket. The archivist sat across the room, eyes half closed, whispering something under his breath. A chant? A counterweight? Kara didn't ask. She couldn't afford to lose focus. As she wrote, the room grew colder. At first, it was just a breeze, then a sharp chill like invisible fingers brushing her neck. The baby monitor, turned off, sputtered back to life. Static, and then the lullaby again. But this time, warped beyond recognition, like someone screaming through broken piano strings. Kara gritted her teeth and kept writing. Ivy's first word was mama, not quiet, not him, not anything else. Mama. Her favorite toy was the giraffe plushie, the one missing one eye. Her first steps were in the hallway, the same hallway where the shadow stood. But he wasn't there. She walked toward me. The monitor crackled. A whisper. But not Ivy's name this time. Just breathing. Deep. Hungry. Closer. The lights dimmed to a dusky orange. Ivy opened her eyes. He's mad, she whispered. He says you're changing the ending. I am, Kara replied, not looking away from the page. And I'm not stopping. The floorboards creaked behind them. Then, thud. From upstairs, another thud. Then a dragging sound across the ceiling. The archivist stood. It's trying to manifest. Keep writing. It's all you have. Kara's hand cramped, but she didn't stop. Ivy had no nightmares. Her dreams were filled with oceans, and stars, and dogs that danced when she laughed. Her world was safe, protected, mine. The dragging stopped. Silence. Then the door to Ivy's room, just down the hall, slammed shut on its own. They hadn't opened it, hadn't gone near it, but now something was inside. Stay here, the archivist said, pulling something from his coat. A long iron nail, old and blackened, like it had been dug out of a coffin. If I'm not back in 2 minutes, burn the book. Kara's head snapped up. Burn it? Why? If the story can't be finished, neither can he. Don't let him rewrite her again. He stepped into the hall. Gone. Ivy clung to Kara, trembling. He's angry because you took his baby away. I didn't, Kara whispered, tears in her eyes. I just wouldn't let him take mine. They waited. The silence grew heavier, like something was pressing down on the entire house. And then, the scream. Not from Ivy, not from Kara, but from the archivist, followed by a low, guttural laughter that rose from the floorboards, the walls, the baby monitor, even the ink on the pages Kara had just written. And then Ivy looked up and said softly, Mommy. He's not in the hallway anymore. Kara's blood turned to ice. She scanned the room, her eyes darting toward the open door, then the shadows stretching along the corners of the nursery walls. The baby monitor buzzed softly, then sputtered back into silence. Even Ivy's breathing slowed, almost as if she were listening for something, or someone. Kara stood, pulling Ivy into her arms. Where is he? She whispered. Ivy didn't blink. He's in the story now. Kara turned back to the journal. The words she had just written were changing. Letter by letter, they shifted on the page, like ink bleeding backward. The sentence about Ivy's first laugh dissolved, replaced by, She was never yours. No! Kara slammed her palm on the book. This is my story. Heron, not his. The iron nail, the one the archivist left behind, lay abandoned on the floor near the doorway. Kara lunged for it and stabbed it through the journal, pinning it shut. The book jerked, as if alive, the pages twitching, curling inward like they were burning from within. Ivy screamed. From down the hall, footsteps pounded, fast, uneven. Then the archivist appeared, bloody and half-limping. He's trying to take control of the narrative. He's not a ghost. He's a parasite. He feeds on belief, on repetition. If you accept the story he tells, he becomes real. Kara backed away from the thrashing journal. What do we do now? The archivist reached into his coat again, pulled out something Kara couldn't quite see, until he threw it across the room. It burst into white smoke on contact, and the lights flickered violently. Through the haze, a shape twisted along the ceiling. Pale, gaunt, long limbs, a face that flickered like static. He's not a man, the archivist muttered. He's the echo of a man, a name whispered too many times by too many grieving mothers. That's how he found Ivy. Through you, through your pain. Kara felt like she'd been punched in the chest. I was broken, but I never invited this. You remembered him. That was enough. Suddenly, Ivy started to cry. Not the soft, scared whimper of a baby, but a scream so sharp and unnatural it made Kara's knees buckle. The shadow curled closer, as if drawn to the sound. He wants her voice, the archivist hissed. If he takes it, he rewrites her completely. You'll wake up tomorrow and won't even remember you ever had a child. No, Kara whispered, holding Ivy tighter. You said stories can be rewritten. They can. Then help me end his. The archivist dropped the smoldering vial. The room darkened again, but this time only one candle flickered in the corner. Kara stepped toward the journal, still pinned beneath the iron nail. I'll write the ending, she said through gritted teeth. I'll erase him. No, the archivist said. You don't write his end. She does. He looked at Ivy. The little girl, red-eyed and exhausted, reached out a trembling hand toward the journal. As soon as her fingers brushed it, the entire room shifted, like paper folding, like film reversing. Kara wasn't sure what Ivy was doing, but she could feel it. The story was folding in on itself. The shadow hissed. The walls rippled. The baby monitor exploded in a shower of sparks, and from Ivy's mouth came a single word, gone. The shadow screamed. It writhed, clawed at the ceiling, tried to escape. But there was nowhere left to run. Ivy's word echoed through the space like a command. Gone. Again. Gone. One final time. And then, silence. No buzz from the monitor. No groan of floorboards. No shifting shadow in the corners. Just peace. Thick, almost heavy peace, like the room had finally exhaled after holding its breath for too long. Kara collapsed to her knees, still clutching Ivy, whose tiny hand now hung limp at her side. The journal lay quiet on the floor, the pages no longer twitching, no longer bleeding ink. The iron nail held firm. There was no trace of him, not even a whisper. The archivist stood frozen, his face unreadable. Then, slowly, he bowed his head toward Ivy. She did it, he murmured. She didn't just end the story, she rejected it. That's power. Real power. Kara looked down at her daughter. Ivy's breathing was steady, normal. Her eyes fluttered, tired now, but free. And yet, Kara knew, this wasn't over. What happens next? She asked. The archivist walked to the journal and picked it up carefully, as if it might wake. You've severed the thread he used to get in, but this, he held up the book, is still dangerous. If someone opens it again, remembers the story, speaks his name. Kara shook her head. No one's opening it. You'd be surprised how often people go looking for the darkness they've already escaped. His words hung in the air like smoke. Kara took Ivy to the kitchen, set her gently into her crib. She watched her daughter sleep, her chest rising and falling in the calmest rhythm she'd heard in weeks. It was over, at least for now. The archivist was gone by the time she returned to the living room. No farewell, no trace, only the journal, wrapped tightly in thick black cloth, resting on the table beside a folded note. In sharp, handwritten script it read, "Every story wants to be told, but some must be forgotten." Kara burned the journal in the fireplace that night. Not just the book, but the monitor, the nursery camera, and the old toys that had been there since Ivy's birth. Every item that could tie that story to reality. She didn't stop until there was nothing but ash. But even then, something lingered. Not in the house, not in the air, but in her. Because now she knew. She knew stories weren't just harmless words. She knew how grief could open doors, how pain could give voice to something ancient, something hungry. And she knew that Ivy, her sweet little girl, had seen something no child should see, and spoken a word no child should ever know. Kara watched Ivy in the days that followed. She laughed again, played, slept through the night, but every now and then, right around 3:33 a.m., Kara would find her sitting up in the crib, wide awake, eyes focused on the farthest corner of the room. And sometimes, just sometimes, Kara thought she heard Ivy whisper to the shadows, "Not this time." The words haunted Kara in a different way now, not with fear, but with an eerie certainty. Ivy wasn't afraid, not anymore. She was aware, changed, not broken, but sharpened. Like something inside her had seen through the veil and decided to stand guard. Weeks passed. Kara did everything she could to bring normalcy back. She painted over the nursery walls, replaced the furniture, got rid of every relic, every trace of that night. Even the clocks, especially the clocks. There would be no more 3:33 a.m.s in that house. But Ivy still woke up at the same minute, like clockwork, never crying, just watching. Then one night, Kara finally asked her, "Ivy, what do you see?" The little girl looked at her mother, head tilted, curls casting long shadows across her cheek. "He tries," she said, "but I tell him go away." Kara's breath caught. He comes back?" Ivy nodded. "He knocks, but I'm not scared now. He's small." Kara almost laughed, though it trembled in her throat. "He's small?" "To me," Ivy whispered, "but big to others." Kara wrapped her daughter in her arms. "You're safe. I promise. I'll always protect you." Ivy's tiny voice answered, "I know, Mommy. But sometimes, I'll protect you too." That night, Kara didn't sleep. She sat in the hallway watching the monitor screen, the same screen she'd once destroyed and then quietly replaced, just to be sure. Nothing happened. No flicker, no whisper. Just her daughter, sleeping soundly. But at 3:33, the screen blinked, just once, and then held steady. In the middle of the room, Ivy sat up, looked to the corner, and calmly said, "Your story ends here." Then, silence. Forever. No more dreams. No more whispers. No more shadows twisting in the dark. Just peace. And for the first time in a long time, Kara believed it was real. The next morning, Ivy ran through the house laughing, barefoot and wild. She looked back at Kara with a joy that was pure, untouched, complete. Whatever that thing had been, it lost. Kara didn't know why the entity chose Ivy. Maybe it was the grief, the perfect hour. The door left ajar by sorrow. But it didn't matter now, because Ivy hadn't just survived the story. She rewrote its ending, and that was something no darkness could undo.